TCU went 7-6 last year, including an ugly win in the Cheez-It Bowl. But does Gary Patterson have them poised for a bounce-back year in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Never doubt a Gary Patterson-led team. Last year, TCU was 4-6 and pulled off 2 upsets at the end of the season to clinch bowl eligibility and then beat California 10-7 in the Cheez-It Bowl, one of the ugliest bowl games I have ever seen. But in 2019, Patterson has this TCU team poised for a major bounce-back year. In 2016, TCU went 6-7, but in 2017, the Horned Frogs bounced back with an 11-3 record. Last year, they went 7-6. What is in store for 2019? Well, the major question that TCU has to answer before the start of the season is who their quarterback is going to be. There are so many quarterbacks on this roster, and Gary Patterson even said they have so many guys competing, and they don't have a clear frontrunner yet. Will it be Alex Delton, the transfer quarterback from Kansas State, who not only is a decent quarterback, but is also a dangerous runner, can beat you on the ground? Will it be Mike Collins, who had playing experience with the Horned Frogs last year? Will it be Matthew Baldwin, the transfer from Ohio State? Or will it be Justin Rogers, the very talented freshman? So there are 4 quarterbacks that could very well win the job for TCU. I believe it will go to Alex Delton. I think he has experience playing in the Big 12. I think he's the most talented on this roster right now. I think he would be the perfect fit for this Gary Patterson-led offense. But many questions at that quarterback position. They will have a very talented running game, though. They have Siwo Alanalula and Darius Anderson, both very talented running backs, both who will do a great job on the ground for TCU and pick up any slack that comes out of the passing game. And whoever is at quarterback will have a phenomenal wide receiver back in Jalen Reggie, extremely talented, extremely fast, had over 1,000 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns last season. So this TCU offense will take a major step forward in 2019. Defensively, TCU returns 5 starters from a unit that allowed 23.1 points per game last year. And you have to keep in mind, this TCU team went 6-6 last year in the regular season, but had a lot of injuries across the board. Offensive line, defense, at quarterback. So this TCU team probably was a little bit better than that record indicated. And we saw that from their 2 losses they had in Big 12 play by 4 combined points. But because of those injuries, this team will be much more experienced across the board, and that will be the reason that TCU will have such a major bounce-back season in 2019. We have them opening up the season with an easy win over UAPB, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Shouldn't be an issue there for the Horned Frogs. They're 1-0, but get a Week 2 bye week, and I'm not a fan of these early bye weeks for teams. I know they don't get to choose that, but it is usually unfortunate for teams that when they have to have a bye week in Week 2 or Week 3. But fortunately for TCU, that bye week comes before a big-time road game on the road against Purdue, another Power 5 opponent out of the Big 10, and a team that could very well win 7 games and make their 3rd straight bowl under Jeff Brom. Purdue will boast a very talented defense with 9 returning starters on that side of the ball, and even though they only return 3 offensively, one of them is Elijah Sindelar, a very talented quarterback, and one of them is Rondale Moore, one of the best players in the entire nation, extremely fast, extremely talented at wide receiver. But I'm going to give TCU a win on the road against Purdue. And I think this will show that TCU is back, that they are poised for another maybe 8-9 win season in 2019. This will be a quality win over a quality Big Ten opponent on the road. Gary Patterson has his team ready. I like that they get the week of rest beforehand. And I think it's an upset. I think they upset Purdue on the road. Now, a lot of people may disagree with that, and I think this game could go either way, but I like TCU more in this game. They come back home, face off against SMU. I'm going to give them a win here, but we didn't have it marked down as a surefire victory. SMU brings in Shane Buechele, of course, the transfer quarterback from Texas. They return a lot of starters, will be one of the more experienced teams in the American Athletic Conference. TCU took easy care of the Mustangs last year. Expect SMU to put up some points this year, but not enough to beat TCU on the road. Then they kick off Big 12 play. This is where it gets serious. This is where it matters. They open up against Kansas. And this is a very fitting way to open up the season because last year, TCU fell to the Jayhawks on the road 27-26. Just 1 point they fell to the Jayhawks in what was a pretty big upset considering Kansas just went 3-9. This year, a major year for Kansas. A lot of news coming out of Lawrence because of the hiring of Les Miles coming out of retirement from LSU, or if you want to call it a retirement. But one of the biggest hires of the 2019 offseason, looking to turn this Kansas Jayhawks program around. Unfortunately, he won't be able to do that in year one, and lightning will not strike twice. Kansas will not beat TCU for the second straight year. Expect this game to be close for a little bit. TCU pulls away late, especially from that dominant running game. Puka Williams could have a big game if TCU's defense, their front seven, is not prepared for this. I think they are, though. They get a home win over Kansas, especially trying to exact revenge after that disappointing loss last year. They then go on the road to face off against Iowa State. And last year, TCU won this game against the Cyclones, 17-14. Held that Iowa State offense to just 14 points. But this Iowa State team in 2019 is extremely different. And this game is on the road for the Horned Frogs, playing in Ames at Jack Trice Stadium, what I think is one of the most difficult places to play in all of the Big 12. Iowa State returns 16 starters, has a great crew of wide receivers, has a very talented and young quarterback in Brock Purdy, and their defense will even be better, I think, in 2019 than it was in 2018. So with this game being on the road, with them still having to have a new quarterback in TCU, regardless of who it is, I think they fall on the road to a Cyclones team that could very well make the Big 12 title game. TCU takes their first loss of the season to Iowa State, but they are 4-1 going into their second bye week. So a very, very promising start for TCU and Gary Patterson. They get this bye week going on the road to face off against Kansas State. And last year they beat Kansas State just 14-13. Keep in mind that out of the 4 Big 12 wins that TCU had last year, they came by an average of 4.5 points per game. Every Big 12 win TCU had came by just one possession, an average of 4.5 points per game, which is an unbelievable statistic, and just showed, how, I wouldn't even say lucky, but how fortunate TCU was to clinch those wins and then get to bowl eligibility. This game on the road against Kansas State, not going to be easy whatsoever. I think Chris Klieman with the Wildcats was given the best team and the best situation for one of the 4 brand new head coaches in the Big 12. I think he inherited the most talent out of that likes of Texas Tech and Kansas and some of the other schools. So the Kansas State will certainly give TCU a fight, much like they did last year. But I think with this bye week, once again, very fortunate for TCU to get a bye week going into a road game. I think the Horned Frogs go on the road and beat Kansas State. But don't be surprised, this game is very similar to the one like last year, a 14-13 victory for the Horned Frogs. But TCU does beat Kansas State on the road. They have the talent, but you have to be weary of a brand new head coach trying to implement his system with this talent. They then come back home to face off against Texas. And this is, of course, a major game. And this game last year was a 15-point loss for TCU, and to me that really showed that Texas was back. The week before, Texas had beaten USC by like 23 points. Then they came back, beat number 17 TCU by 15 points. That showed that Texas was legit, and people need to start taking them seriously. This game at home for TCU, very, very fortunate for them. And I am priding myself, I'm very impressed with this TCU defense. Let's say that. I think TCU will pride themselves on that defense. And that's going to be one of their strengths. So I do think that they will shut down this very explosive Texas offense. You got Sam Ehlinger. You've got Colin Johnson. You got Keontae Ingram. This Texas offense thrived last year. Will probably be even better in this year despite losing some big-time stars. But in the end, I think Texas just has too much. They'll get their breaks offensively, and a lot of people want to hate on Texas's defense. They're going to be better than some people expect. Texas comes on the road and gets a close win over an in-state rival. TCU takes their second loss of the season. They then go back on the road to face off against Oklahoma State. And a lot of factors go into what I'm about to predict here. One of those is the Texas hangover. If this game is close in 2019, which I think it very well could be, TCU will be coming off an emotional loss to Texas, a little bit of a hangover there, facing off against an Oklahoma State team that does not have sky-high expectations like they have had in previous years, but will still have the talent to compete for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. And like Gary Patterson, like many of the other coaches I've mentioned, you never want to doubt Mike Gundy. But like TCU, they have to figure out a quarterback, Spencer Sanders or Drew Brown, the transfer from Hawaii. But like TCU, they're going to have a definite and solid running back in Chuba Hubbard. So, and also, like TCU and Jalen Reggie, they will have a very talented wide receiver in Tylan Wallace. So, TCU and Oklahoma State are very, very similar across the board. They're very similar on the offensive side of the ball and defensively have about the same amount of experience. But coming off this Texas loss, the game's on the road against Oklahoma State. Even though TCU won 31-24 last year to clinch bowl eligibility, I think they fall on the road to Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. TCU takes their second straight loss of the season, or third overall in 2019. That's 3 conference losses for them. All but surely gets them out of the Big 12 title race, but not keeping them out of a bowl game, and a good one at that. They come back home to face off against Baylor. Half of their games left of the season, their final 4 games, half are at home, half are on the road. Unfortunately, those 2 road games are extremely tough, and their 2 home games are not as tough as those road games. They face off against Baylor, a team that they beat 16-9 last year. Very low scoring, showed the strength of this TCU defense and how they stepped up towards the end of the season. That was one of the upsets that TCU pulled to get their 5th win of the season and keep their bowl hopes alive. This Baylor team, though, is a team that I'm really excited to watch in 2019. One that I think could be a dark horse in the Big 12. I love Charlie Brewer at quarterback. I think they have a very talented running back core, very similar to TCU. And their defense will probably be the best yet under Matt Rule in Waco. So watch out for Baylor. But TCU gets to host this game. I think their defense shuts down this Baylor offense, and if you take away Baylor's offense, they absolutely will struggle. Because while the defense will be improved, it's not going to be that improved. TCU gets a win at home against the Bears, and right there, they have clinched bowl eligibility. They have their 6 wins. They are going bowling once again under Gary Patterson, but they certainly want more. They go on the road to Texas Tech, a team that they lost to 17-14 last year. And Texas Tech this year, if they can stay healthy, could be a very scary team. Yes, they're being led by Matt Wells, a brand new head coach, but if Alan Bowman stays healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire Big 12, and I think Texas Tech's defense, which was horrendous under Cliff Kingsbury, will take a major step forward under Matt Wells, a guy that wants to pride himself on his defense and improve that. So this game is certainly a trap game for TCU, but I think they get the slight edge over the Red Raiders. Even though Texas Tech owns the edge at quarterback, TCU owns the edge at the running back position, and I think they own the edge defensively right now. They go on the road, get a close win over Texas Tech, much like last year's game was close, but this time TCU's on the winning side. They then go on the road to face off against Oklahoma, and in years past, we have seen classics between the Horned Frogs and the Sooners. Unfortunately, you will not see a classic this year. Not on the road at Norman, not with Oklahoma, a team that is once again poised to make their 3rd straight college football playoff appearance. They bring in Jalen Hurts from Alabama at quarterback. They've got Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks at the running back position, C.D. Lamb at wide receiver, and a defense that a lot of people like to hate on, but will improve with 8 returning starters. This year, Oklahoma is once again the real deal. The kings of the Big 12 until someone can dethrone them. TCU will not be the team to do that. The Horned Frogs fall on the road to the Sooners. And they close out the year against a brand new head coach in West Virginia with Neil Brown coming over from Troy to take over this Mountaineers program. Last year, TCU was annihilated by the Mountaineers, but that was last year. West Virginia loses Will Greer. They lose David Sills. They lose a lot of starters defensively. They are basically rebuilding this program from the ground up under Neil Brown because it's how much they lost in 2018, going into 2019. This West Virginia team will be good under Neil Brown eventually, as soon as next year possibly, but expect a rebuilding year for them. I think TCU takes easy care of West Virginia in the season finale, gets a win at home on Senior Day, and closes out the year with an 8-4 record and a chance at 9 wins if they can win their bowl game. Almost lost our board there. So this TCU team, absolutely the real deal, I think, going into 2019. We have them pegged at 8-4. Not Big 12 title contenders, but you never want to count out a Gary Patterson-led team. They pull off an upset on the road against Iowa State, maybe at home, on the road against Oklahoma State. You can sure as heck expect them to be a legitimate contender in this Big 12 conference. One that I think outside of the top 3, Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa State, is wide open for the taking. So beware of Gary Patterson and the Horned Frogs in 2019. They are absolutely the real deal. A major bounce-back year after a disappointing 6-6 regular season in 2018. Of course, Gary Patterson going to have this team ready to go come 2019. So, guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And go to our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today, only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.